This is Pulse of Africa, the face of Ethiopia, the voice of Africa.
Hello and welcome to Pulse of Africa News. I'm Jalini Tasfaye with the news. Our top stories for today. Prime Minister Abiy confers with Russian Federation Council Speaker Matvienko. AU mission head in Somalia stresses Ethiopia's role in Peace and Security Council. ECA and AFCFTA Secretariat for Strategic Partnership. Russia and US agree to work toward ending Ukraine war. Now to the news in detail. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed met Speaker of the Federation Council of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation, Valentina Matvienko, and her delegation. Prime Minister Abiy shared in his social media channels that it was a valuable opportunity to discuss and explore Ethio-Russia relations. A Russian high-level delegation, led by Speaker Valentina Matvienko, arrived in Addis Ababa on Tuesday for a 3-day official visit to Ethiopia. The delegation comprises of senators, federal ministers, deputy ministers, as well as heads of large Russian state corporations. To African-Turkish Summit. The African Union announced that Libya will host the 2026 African-Turkish Summit. The decision was adopted during the 38th African Union Summit held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, from February 15 to 16, according to a statement from Libya's Presidential Council. In recent years, 3 African-Turkish Partnership Summits were held in Istanbul in 2008, Malabo, Equatorial Guinea in 2014, and Istanbul again in 2021. Likewise, Egypt will host an emergency Arab summit on March 4 to discuss plans to rebuild the Gaza Strip without displacing its Palestinian inhabitants. The summit was originally scheduled to be held on February 27, but was postponed to March 4 to complete logistical preparations, the Egyptian Foreign Ministry said in a statement. The ministry said the new date was set in coordination with Bahrain, the current chair of the Arab League, and in consultation with Arab countries. The summit follows a proposal by US President Donald Trump to take over Gaza and resettle its Palestinian inhabitants. To the issue of African Free Trade Area. The Economic Commission for Africa (ECA) and the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat have signed a Memorandum of Understanding in Addis Ababa to enhance cooperation in supporting the effective implementation of the Continental Free Trade Area. This landmark agreement sets the stage for closer collaboration between the two institutions to advance trade integration, industrialization, and private sector development across Africa. The partnership will focus on developing concrete trade facilitation programs, policy reforms, and capacity-building initiatives to ensure smooth implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The MOU establishes a framework for ECA and the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat to work together in key areas, including market access and trade facilitation, supporting the removal of tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade. Turning to AU mission in Somalia. Head of the African Union mission in Somalia, Mohammed El Amin Souf, underscored the importance of Ethiopia's involvement in the African Union Peace and Security Council. Ethiopia has been elected as a member of the African Union Peace and Security Council at the 46th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council of the African Union held in Addis Ababa last week. The election recognizes Ethiopia's contributions to peace, security, and development across the African continent. Souf stressed that Ethiopia's membership is crucial not only for regional peace, but also for the stability of the entire continent. I think it is something very important for all of us, he said. He added that Ethiopia has played a significant role in various UN peacekeeping missions and worked diligently during the Darfur conflict. Today, Ethiopia is one of the biggest contingents in peacekeeping force, AMISOM, ATMIS, and probably OSOM, he said, adding, I think it is something very important because Ethiopians know the field, they understand the threats of peace and stability. Ethiopia is among the largest contingents in AMISOM, ATMIS, and possibly OSOM, he said, emphasizing their deep understanding of the field and security threats. to US-Russia relations. Russia and the US agreed on Tuesday to start working toward ending the war in Ukraine and improving their diplomatic and economic ties. The US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the two sides agreed broadly to pursue three goals, including to restore staffing at their respective embassies in Washington and Moscow, to create a high-level team to support Ukraine peace talks, and to explore closer relations and economic cooperation. He stressed that the talks mark the beginning of a conversation and more work needs to be done. Lavrov echoed Rubio's remarks and told reporters that the conversation was very useful. We not only listened but also heard each other, he said. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov agreed to appoint respective high-level teams to begin working on a path to ending the conflict in Ukraine as soon as possible, the US State Department said. But no Ukrainian officials were present at the meeting. To Australia. More than 150 false killer whales have died or will be euthanized after a mass stranding on a remote Australian beach. Tasmania's Department of Natural Resources and Environment said the pod had breached near Arthur River in the island's northwest. About 90 of the 157 animals, which witnesses say include juveniles, were alive on Wednesday, but a team of experts at the site said complex conditions have made it impossible to save them. Tasmania has seen a series of mass strandings in recent years, including the country's worst ever in 2020. But false killer whales haven't mass stranded there in over 50 years. False killer whales are technically one of world's largest dolphin species, like their okra namesakes. Authorities on Wednesday said the pod had been stranded at the site for 24 to 48 hours, and the surviving animals were already under extreme stress.
Ethiopia is my blood, your story and our identity, ornamented by centuries of sacrifice. The story of resurgent Ethiopia and burgeoning Africa is here, only on the Pulse of Africa channel, all the time. Pulse of Africa, the face of Ethiopia, the voice of Africa.
Now to business news. For the first time this year, fuel prices at the pumps have seen a reduction as some oil marketing companies adjust their rates in response to shifting market conditions. The decrease comes after 3 consecutive price hikes since the beginning of 2025. Total Energies and Shell are among the key players leading the adjustment. The reductions follow a decline in global crude oil prices, which industry experts say has influenced local pricing trends. While fuel prices have been on an upward trajectory since January, this latest adjustment offers some relief to consumers who have faced persistent increases at the pumps. Finally, US President Donald Trump said on Tuesday he intends to impose auto tariffs in the neighborhood of 25% and similar duties on semiconductors and pharmaceutical imports, the latest in a series of measures threatening to upend international trade. Trump has long rallied against what he calls the unfair treatment of US automotive exports in foreign markets. On Friday, Trump said levies on automobiles would come as soon as April 2, the day after members of his cabinet are due to deliver reports to him outlining options for a range of import duties as he seeks to reshape global trade. He did not provide a date for announcing those duties and said he wanted to provide some time for drug and chip makers to set up US factories so that they can avoid tariffs. Trump said he expected some of the biggest companies in the world to announce new investments in the United States in the next couple of weeks. Before we wind up, let's get you updated on the global commodity prices. That is all for today. Join us tomorrow on Pulse of Africa. Thank you for watching.
This is Pulse of Africa, the face of Ethiopia, the voice of Africa.